Hello everyone, this is Enzo, and today we're going to be talking about the FrontWars.io lawsuit. So if you haven't heard, on the FrontWars.io Discord, Mystic, one of the developers of FrontWars, posted that OpenFront.io has filed a federal lawsuit against FrontWars, specifically related to some things about code and copyright infringement. So in this video, it's going to be a little bit more informal, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the background of the situation, what I know about the court case, and I actually just saw some crazy stuff about the numbers, and also give you my opinion. So just to get us started with a bit of background, FrontWars.io was created, I think, about a little over 2 months ago, being forked from OpenFront.io's code. It was a carbon copy of OpenFront, there were no practical changes made, and even their logo was made to look like OpenFront. It got marketed on a lot of different online gaming websites like Crazy Games. It was monetized really quick with ads, and there were no tangible differences that people could tell. So eventually, the OpenFront.io dev, Evan, made a video about OpenFront being stolen, where he talked about some various things with copyright and the code, and there was this whole back and forth about what was legal and what was not, and things generally cooled off in the public eye. But in the recent weeks, I've heard rumblings about a lawsuit, and that has finally come to the forefront. So the lawsuit was filed on November 18th, and while we're not going to get into all the specifics, what I know is a lot of it relates to GPL code, some things related to Steam, and also copyright. And while I can't authoritatively weigh in on the type of legal dynamics of this, what I can do is tell you a little bit about the differences between FrontWars and OpenFront.io, which there are not many. So while FrontWars has recently gotten a quote-unquote update, if you go to their main page, what you'll see is a slightly different cosmetic. If you go through their menu to try to go into custom games, you'll see that things are slightly different, but it's pretty much all the same information. Now, if you go into most games, the main thing that you're going to notice is that there is a new donation slider for troops and gold, which is really not practical. The text for nations now looks terrible, and there are also ads in games which you can't do anything about, which really makes it hard for content creators to make content on the game. Besides this, on the information panel, there are things that are slightly different, but in the classic game mode, nothing is really practically different with FrontWars. The one thing that I can say is different outside of these cosmetic elements is the fast game mode, which unfortunately was actually just an error in the code based on what Mystic told me in changing some things with factories, and apparently this game mode is filled with cheaters, cross-teamers, and people using macros to just make it a bunch of bullshit. So broadly speaking, from my perspective, FrontWars is not really a new game. Now, in terms of the court case, I'm not really sure what to say overall, but one thing I can say definitively is that for half of FrontWars' existence, it was marketed in a way that pretty much was based on deception. It was trying to pass itself off as OpenFront, and still, even up to this day, you see people in the forum confused at what is really different from OpenFront with this game, which the answer is there's not really much. Besides this, I know there are some various things about OpenFront updating its code license from MIT to AGPL, and there's various things that are different with this. And what I've seen from my impression of just checking out FrontWars periodically is it seems like they are continuing to kind of pull off things from the code, and I'm not totally sure if they're actually complying with the updated license, which requires attribution. But overall, just talking about my opinion about this, I'm not really positive on FrontWars, primarily because they haven't really done anything to improve the game. Their most recent update, if we even want to call it that, it doesn't change anything meaningful with gameplay dynamics. The game has been marketed in a really deceiving way, and I don't think they're making improvements, and all the bugs really show that. And if you think I'm just really negative on every OpenFront.io fork, you should consider about my channel that I've been the first person to cover pretty much every OpenFront.io fork, and I think it's awesome that different games are trying to innovate and create something new. And I also think it's kind of a shame that games like Tactic Front or Terratomic, which is going to have a cool new awesome update, is not getting the attention for the actual changes they have made, while a game like this is getting lots of attention just from all this marketing and stuff. And it's one more comment if you get these strawman arguments from FrontWars development team about that FrontWars forking OpenFront is the same as Warfront being forked into OpenFront. It is nothing alike. If you all go look at Warfront.io, which is the predecessor of OpenFront, even in OpenFront's initial version, what you could see is that OpenFront made a ton of changes, and I think that most people can recognize it's a completely different game. So all this said, let me know what you think about this, if you have any thoughts on the court case, and if you want to see another video covering the specific type of complaints and allegations from the plaintiffs. In any case, I'll see you all in the next vid. Bye-bye.